Miami Sports Always from two homies in Miami.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you may be listening. Welcome to the Sports Spectator podcast. We are on episode 34. We got a whole lot to talk about. I'm still very depressed, but I'm not slightly as depressed today based on the Dolphins winning yesterday. We're going to be talking Inter Miami getting absolutely whooped by Atlanta. But first and foremost, we have a very special guest with us today. We got our boy Medhi, who many call him the soccer guru. I mean, even Trump recently winning the election, he even said it. Medhi, absolute biggest soccer guru guy I've ever seen. Extraordinaire. I know a lot of sports guys that make great commentary, but Medhi, by far the best sports guys that I've ever seen. I'm sure you guys have probably seen that. So we got him live, raw, unfiltered content. Medhi is going. He's an Atlanta local, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm sure he's going to be torching us. He's going to be scorching us as far as how Atlanta beat Inter Miami. He's going to be giving us his best take. And then, of course, we have to talk about got its first loss this weekend. Miami Dolphins saved the state of Florida from going 0-12 for the entire weekend by beating the Rams yesterday. I'm super excited, guys. Medhi, you're here. I'm super hyped, dude. This Tuesday feels a little bit like a Monday if I'm being 100% honest, but the people want to know, who are you, man? Give us a little intro.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that intro. A lot of good words said. Soccer guru, maybe not everyone would agree with that. I come with my opinions. Some people agree, some people don't agree. But just really excited to be on this platform. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of what you guys do. So I appreciate you guys having me on and appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to kind of provide my input. So hopefully I don't piss off too many people with my opinions. But no, looking forward to talking ball.
Hey, listen, we always say that if we're not upsetting someone with an episode, then we didn't do that episode right. So I'm definitely hoping that we get a little bit of criticism for whatever we may say. But boys, John, you got the Inter Miami shirt today, so let's just get right into it. So Miami got beaten by Atlanta. How are we feeling? What are the takes? What is the outlook going forward? What do we think?
So I'm wearing my Inter Miami jersey right now, but actually I wore my Atlanta United jersey yesterday. But due to unforeseen circumstances, which include frames falling off the wall and bursting a water pipe behind the wall, where it's just exploding water. Maybe that was just the reason why it happened, because I wore Atlanta United in an Inter Miami loss like that. But before you tell us how it is, Medhi, I actually was an Atlanta United fan before an Inter Miami fan, so it kind of feels okay. I feel okay right now, honestly. So what did you think, Medhi? Who's your number one MLS team?
I'm not gonna lie. I share that feeling because obviously, like before I moved to Atlanta, I was in Miami, and so I've worked at Inter Miami while I was in my master's. In the relationship, like of being an athletic training student, so I'm good friends with still some of the players. Like I still communicate with them.
Messi.
So I would say like I'm a bigger fan of Inter Miami than Atlanta since I just moved here. But since I am in the city and I'm seeing the buzz, like he said, like I feel okay about it. I was rooting for Inter Miami. But just watching the game, it was so like deja vu, because I was at the game when they came down here. It was like the last game of the season, something like that. Inter Miami came down here to play, and watching that game and then watching the series of the three on TV, it just seemed like carbon copies of each other. And I don't know if Atlanta was just like the Achilles heel for Inter Miami, or what was the case, but it just seemed like Atlanta United presented something that Inter Miami just couldn't deal with. So I'm sure we'll get into like talking about the details and stuff like that. But on the surface, obviously very major upset, a lot of repercussions across the MLS, dealing with their investment into Messi and those different kind of things. But yeah, I don't know, huge upset.
So I feel like I got to ask the question, and hand up, and I say it all the time on this podcast. I am not the soccer guy. That is our local expert, John, that mostly gives us those takes. But I got to say, is the state of Georgia the kryptonite to the state of Florida? Because if we reel it back for a second, last weekend, Florida, Georgia came from behind, beat the University of Florida.
Pause.
University of Miami lost to Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
In this weekend. And then, of course, Inter Miami lost to Atlanta. So that begs the question, should we remove the state of Georgia from the 50 states of the United States of America? That's the question that I want to ask. Is the state of Georgia even necessary as an area? Uh, this particular podcaster is going to say no. But I just noticed that because we just absolutely anything in the state of Florida just gets absolutely crushed by anything in the state of Georgia.
No, it
Do you
was a rough
think?
weekend. Georgia Tech beat UM, got that big win. I had a lot of friends at that game as well, and I was like, I kept expecting UM to come back, the Cardiac Canes, as we got the nickname now, but they never did it. And then I was like, okay, now it's Inter Miami's turn. And Inter Miami lost, and I was like, wow, okay, it's that kind of weekend.
Dude,
Yeah.
it is that kind of weekend.
Juan, who do you think would win if there's only two states left in the United States, Florida versus Georgia? You're taking Florida?
Well, I mean, based on recent outlooks, I think realistically the underdog is going to be Florida in that situation, and like smart money would probably bet the state of Georgia because we have been the state of Florida, or sorry, the state of Georgia's bitch for the past I don't know how many years, dude. I mean, they're literally directly on top of us both geographically and on every single ranking. So I don't know. Obviously I got to root for the home state, but the state of Georgia has been very, very, very scary recently, and they're making it known for every single game that we play. So it's tough out there. It is tough being a fan of Miami sports, but shout out to the Dolphins. We'll, of course, talk about them a little later for redeeming us just a little bit. But I think, so as an uneducated soccer fan, guys, what exactly is the outlook now with Inter Miami? Are we done? Do we have something to look forward to? Again, hand up, I'm very uneducated. What did that loss mean for us exactly?
I'll let you start, John. What do you think?
I think it's a big thing. I think for Inter Miami, what does it mean? I think it doesn't mean much, honestly. I think it matters more for the people. I think like Medhi kind of alluded to that were like the investors. Like for Inter Miami, it's like still a very new team. Yeah, it has Messi, but like they won the League's Cup. They just had the best regular season of all time. It was a disappointing loss in the first round, but like, it's still progress, at least for me. I'm sure there's people that are also diehard fans that are just like, that's the dumbest take ever. But like, for me, it's like, yeah, it is what it is. It's hard to win. Playoffs are different. I'll kind of let Medhi give his response, but I've got some more to say, especially on the coaching side.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, I see it as a big failure because I think you have to look at it like contextually, right? So on decision day, Atlanta was sitting at 12th with a 10% chance to get in. Everything had to go right for them even to make it to the playoffs. And I know once you make it into playoffs, nothing else matters. Everyone's kind of odds kind of reset. So what Atlanta and United did before didn't matter up until that point. But I think again, if you look at the two squads, Atlanta United got rid of their coach in the middle of the season. Struggling, inconsistencies, some wins here, losses there, and Inter Miami, while dealing with, I will say, injuries throughout the season, accumulating the most points in MLS history, having the most expensive team in MLS history, obviously the investments that they made. I think for them to crash out in the first round is a huge failure, and I think it should be taken at that. I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching inside that organization. I think the team that's going to come back next year, there's going to be a lot of changes in different faces, because I think for them to lose the game at home as well is another big thing that has to be said. I think Atlanta here, they were banking really heavily on the fan support. Obviously, I think they kind of filled out the Mercedes-Benz 70,000. So losing one result in the last minute to Atlanta United was fine, but having Atlanta United come back in that third game and not being able to beat them, I think it kind of speaks. I think there's going to be big repercussions, to be honest.
So I feel like I got to ask because those were all very intense points, and I actually was not aware of a lot of that. And I have to agree, on paper, Inter Miami is the better team. It's like you don't get, essentially the Super Bowl MVP of like the World Cup to come to your team and then to get knocked out in the first round. That's embarrassing. That is embarrassing, but it almost begs the question, is Atlanta a better sports town than Miami? Is that something like, is that a claim that other people would accept? Because they packed the Mercedes-Benz stadiums for the Falcons games, which we have not been doing recently at Hard Rock for the Miami Dolphins games. People ride or die for the Atlanta Hawks, and the only thing that team's got going for them is Trae Young. Obviously, Atlanta United, I mean, they've won championships a couple years ago. I know that, and like they packed it for that. Georgia has obviously been winning national championships, in like the past couple of years. So, I mean, shit. is that am I going to get torched on this podcast if I say that Atlanta may be a better sports town than Miami, or am I just being a hater in that regard?
I don't know. I can only speak for since I've only been here for a few months. I will say though, people are very passionate about the sports here. Not to say that about Miami, but people here, it's a part of like the community culture, and it's a part of like people's identities, right? Whether they support Georgia Tech, UGA, Atlanta United, whatever sports team that they decide, like it's a part of, if the team loses, their day is ruined. If the team wins, it's a big celebration in the city. And I will say, Atlanta United throughout the season, the Mercedes-Benz Arena was like empty. Like there wasn't a lot of support in there. But the second Atlanta United made a playoff game, the whole stadium was full. So I think the city looks to support these teams. And as long as these teams give them a reason to support, the people will show up. So I can't speak.
So they're fair weather fans, is what I'm hearing. Terrible sports town, then. Atlanta, terrible sports town. I reel back that take. Awful sports town, fair weather fans. All right, no, I take it back. Terrible observation by me. So they only root for their teams when they're doing well. I mean, so do all of we. But hey, listen, I root for my Dolphins, my Florida Gators, all of these shit tier teams whenever they're terrible. So yeah, terrible take. Atlanta, not a sports town. Miami on top. My bad, 305 for ever even questioning your loyalty at all. Yeah. That's
as a new transplant to Miami myself, I will actually say that Atlanta might be the better sports town. But that's why we're building what we're building here, right? Because we're growing the Miami sports scene. But no, Atlanta's lit. Like Medhi hit it on the nose. Like the Georgia Tech and Georgia rivalry. Like Miami had like one of the biggest years, and still like if that was happening in Atlanta or like Georgia Tech or something, that would be like an insane environment. So yeah, I mean, how about this? I want to do a brief pause to answer some questions that were given to Medhi on Instagram. When we asked, so we got 3 or 4. All right, start off easy. Wings or tacos?
Now that I'm at Atlanta, I'm gonna probably have to answer wings.
Nice, yeah. The wings.
What's your favorite flavor of wings? From where?
Hot honey, and then American deli is pretty fire. John probably knows about it.
Yes.
American Deli. Interesting.
It's a place around here in Atlanta. I can't remember the place that's in like Midtown, right on Peachtree.
Please,
or Ponce de Leon. Yeah, can't remember. But all right. So on a head-to-head, who wins currently, Liverpool or Barcelona?
I mean, I'm a Liverpool guy. Barca's in good form, but we're also top of the table, top of the Champions League table. So I'm gonna have to stick with my guys, Liverpool for sure.
Do you think you're a professional gambler?
Well,
I would also like to know.
have to make money gambling, so probably my record would say no. I would like to think I'm a decent gambler, but professional, no, by no means. It's not paying bills.
All right, so back into soccer. Let's get into it. Question: yes, no, and why? Tata Martino stays the manager of Inter Miami next season.
Yeah, he has to stay. I mean, again, like he led the season, the supporter shield, most points ever in MLS history. I will, if we want to talk about specifically Game 3, there are a few decisions that I didn't really agree with from a coaching tactical standpoint, but I think overall, I think he had a good record, and Inter Miami, like you said, took a step forward. Obviously it is a disappointment, it is embarrassing, but to sack him, I think would be too premature. That would be too reactionary.
What would be a manager that you would say, yeah, okay, we'll take him? That's somewhat realistic that you can imagine. I was thinking
over Tato.
Yeah,
I really like the Columbus Crew guy. I really love the way that they play. I think if you put him in at Inter Miami, I think they have a clear identity of how they want to play. I think the big thing that Tato had to struggle with, were they playing a 5-back, were they playing a 3-back, were they playing a 4-back? And I think being flexible is fine, but I think at some times that the identity in Miami was kind of all over the place. I think the guy at Columbus Crew had a very clear identity of how they want to play. Obviously, they beat us in the Continental Cup or one of the tournaments.
Yeah, Champions League. I just call it Champions League. People get so triggered when I say that.
Yeah, the CONCACAF Champions League. So no, I really, really like the way that they play. I think he would do really well with the group at Miami.
Yeah, I have a thought on that. No opinion whether he is a good general manager or not. The position is called general manager, right? That's how educated I am.
You're a pro.
Tata, such a soccer guy name. If I'm being 100% honest, like I feel like if you have a name like that, you're just destined to play or lead men of soccer. Very much a soccer name. I'm sure like one of the letters in his name probably has like an accent in it. It's very European, very classy. Soccer guy name through and through. Like it's right up there with like Cristiano, Kaká, like
I
you
have
know,
a fun fact for you. Oh shoot, I thought he was Mexican. He's not. He's Argentinian.
Well, let's pretend he is. Let's pretend just for the sake of this fake fun fact. What were you going to say, John?
No, I thought he was Mexican, but he's Argentinian.
Oh, okay. Now I'm like curious where you were going to go with that fun fact exactly. Had he been Mexican? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I think when you simply have two letters together, a consonant and a vowel, and you just repeat it twice, instant soccer guy name. Like Bibi, B-I-B-I, soccer guy name. So I think for any of our listeners that are planning on having future children, children in the near future, and you want them to be involved in soccer professionally, that's probably the naming convention you want to go with, guaranteed to be involved. That's the only thing I wanted to throw in there. I'm sure that.
What would you name your son for that? Yeah.
You know, I've actually had this thought that like if I wanted my child to play in professional sports, what would be the name? And I feel like for soccer, I've always thought like Apollo would be a good one, like Apollo, but pronounce it Apollo.
Whoa!
I feel like that's kind of raw, like very much a soccer guy name. If he was to play basketball, I feel like I don't know. I think Ricky would be a good basketball guy name because I'm thinking of like Ricky Rubio.
Okay.
Yeah, you stole that one.
Yeah. And maybe for like football, I don't know. I always thought Deontay was like the most football guy name, and that's probably what I would call my name. So this is all I'm going to loop it back.
Sport.
Yeah, I think whatever name you're born with kind of aligns with what you will be doing in life. So I was born with a very basic name, unfortunately. So I think that's why I did not end up playing professional sports. Not for my lack of talent. It's just my name didn't align with that. Anyway,
speak for yourself, bro.
John says that because our names are technically the same. Just one's in English and one's in Spanish.
Default package, default names.
Oh yeah. Anyways, probably the dumbest take probably the stupidest thing anyone listening to our podcast has ever heard. But yes, I always had that though. Tata, soccer guy name. Anyways, let's continue.
Medhi, what's your build a soccer player son name?
Build a soccer player's son name.
Like Project Mbappe, what do you name your kid for like
I'm really fond of the name Yusuf. It's an Arabic name. I think it carries real well. I think it's easily like said here. Americans, they can't really mess that one up. Yusuf. So yeah, I think that's the name that I would like my first son to have.
Beautiful.
Yusuf and Alamood.
But because I know it has an S in it, maybe modify it a little bit, and instead of an S with a Z. Yusuf.
Oh.
That's kind of raw. That
is kind of crazy.
Soccer guy name. Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Yeah.
Zeke and Apollo rolling up to soccer practice.
Dude, that's raw. Like,
that is raw.
If you're an opposing team and you see like a starting lineup with those names, you're like, oh fuck, dude, they got like some European guys.
Two maniacs running at you.
Yeah, you're just like, dude, like I can't fucking play against these guys, dude. They're probably gonna come out in like Gucci cleats or something. Like I can't play this shit.
Gucci cleats would be raw. So before we talk further into like MLS playoffs, I'm curious, what do you think about players coming in this offseason? I know the Neymar rumor kind of started pretty excitingly, and now it's switching over to Santos in real time. What do you think about that Neymar transfer, and what are some other things that you'd like to see, or if like the more specific the player or type, the better?
Yeah, so the Neymar one is really it strikes a chord in my heart because obviously we grew up watching him, but now that I'm in school for physical therapy, kind of seeing what he has to be dealing through. I don't know if you guys saw those videos from a while back of when he was working with the physio and they were trying to like bend his knee and he was just like screaming in agony of pain.
Yeah.
And it's just very clear that his recovery just didn't go as smooth as it should have been. So for me personally, just from like a soccer point of view, I just don't think he has the physical capability to like load manage like what what he would need to do for like a very highly competitive. I don't know if he would be fine in Inter Miami. Me personally, I think Inter Miami has other needs in different positions
I
other
want
than
to I
like
want to
maybe
ask you
guard.
because you made an interesting point about
Yeah,
the physio side of it. Like seeing those images and like videos and like the pain he was in. Like, can you speak to anything of like what they were trying to do or like what like
yeah.
was he screaming? Yeah.
Yeah, so at the time they were trying to gain knee flexion, which is like the ability to like bend your knee, right? So after he got done having, I think it was ACL and meniscus as well. The biggest thing is trying to gain full range of motion. So can you fully straighten your knee? Can you fully bend your knee? And the reason why they were forcibly doing that was because like you have certain benchmarks, like at certain weeks you should be at certain points of the range, but he obviously wasn't meeting those ranges, so they were trying to forcibly do that. The thing is like to a certain degree you can do that, to a certain level of discomfort, but if your patient is actively,
Wow.
screaming and crying, like it's doing more harm than good, trying to literally force the knee to bend. So one, that indicates to you he's not where he should be checkpoint wise, but two, also just tells you even with force the knee is not bending how it should be. So obviously I think he went back and played, and then he got injured again. So that could just be like a load issue. Okay, he's been out for so long, just jumping back in. His muscles couldn't handle it. But I just think his body, through his ankle injuries, he had a spine injury as well. I just think his body does not tolerate the load of being a professional athlete, how it used to be and how it should be, for the level required. So me personally, I would not invest in a Neymar to Miami transfer.
Juan, are
I
you
gotta
taking
agree with that
Neymar?
one. I
Yeah,
gotta
Not
agree.
taking him.
Yeah, I feel like we already got Suarez, and I feel like
yeah,
bringing Neymar, it's just giving to me, it's like the equivalent of what like the Clippers basically do, which they
yeah,
load up on guys who used to be superstars, back in
right,
their prime, and we're kind of just trying to extend their shelf life as much as we can.
yeah,
And again, it's sure it's going to put butts in seats, but I think ultimately it's not going to translate to meaningful wins.
yeah,
And I actually wasn't aware of that level of his injuries, and I appreciate Mehdi
yeah,
coming in with
yeah,
the physical therapist point of view. So yeah, I got to be honest. Even just watching the game, even a novice like myself, I was able to see that there was a lot of holes
yeah,
in whatever it was that they were scheming. So I feel like there's other needs. I feel like there's probably better younger players that are maybe diamonds in the rough that can be coached up, or just
yeah,
players that are younger overall, maybe not as well known. But at the end of the day, if you can find a way to win games, regardless of who you have out on the pitch, you're going to put butts in seats. So
yeah, yeah.
that's my take. I like, it would be exciting. It would generate a lot of buzz, but I don't think it would translate to anything meaningful.
Yeah, and I think you just have to look back at Inter Miami's season and kind of see like what was their biggest issues. And I think those issues were again highlighted in that game. So Inter Miami, they have Messi, Suarez, Busquets, Jordi Alba, which when they're on the ball, they dominate with possession. The passes are very clean. They dominate opponents' possession. But the second they turn over the ball, they're very susceptible on counters because they have guys on the field that are just not mobile anymore. And they've throughout the season they get into these firefights where they're winning 4-2, 3-2, 5-3, and yes they're winning and yes they're scoring a lot of goals, but you also have to look at the standpoint where they're also conceding a lot of goals as well, and that comes from a lot of that transition soccer. And you saw a couple times in the game on over the weekend, like that second goal, poor pass from defense. But the second they gave the ball away, Atlanta United was on them immediately, and then like two passes later, Atlanta United scores. So again, for me personally, like I think investments has to be made into definitely defensive players, but obviously like guys, if you're going to continue down the path of Messi and Suarez, guys that can do the work for them around them, because Messi and Suarez don't have the mobility to cover ground how they should be, both offensively and defensively. On the ball, they're fantastic, but the field is big, and you need guys that are going to be able to cover that ground.
I know we're talking about old players and stuff, but we are talking about defense, and I want Sergio Ramos to come over here. That'd be
So the
lit.
exact opposite of what I was talking about.
But he's like, I feel like he'd play at this level like what's the guy from Brazil, Thiago Silva,
Okay, so
like played into like his 40s, just vibing.
yeah,
I feel like Sergio maybe wouldn't be as good, but at the MLS, like I'm sure he'd be better than some of the other options we've got. I think just to summarize the game before we move on, one of my interesting takeaways was that, like, yes, I agree with everything you said, Mehdi, but also, like, the reason why we lost is because Brad Guzan made, like, a bunch of crazy saves,
Oh my
like,
gosh,
incredible
yes.
saves. And then the last goal where they literally just stopped playing. Like, that
Yes.
was, like, the biggest – it was, like, the
Yes.
perfect moment to put the cherry on top of, like, the season where it was just, like, entitlement and confusion and just, like, expecting the ref
Yes.
to give you a call. Like, it was just, like, the perfect way to lose. It was just like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Jordi Alba's like, why aren't you, like, it was crazy. And I
Yeah.
think that's my biggest takeaway. Like, with everything being said, like, not the best games. Sergio Busquets was actually out, I think, 2 games,
Yeah.
at least the last one. And
Yeah.
but it all came down to Brad Guzan and then just not
Yes.
playing. Yeah,
Yes.
crazy.
I will say that, the saves that he made were insane. And you have to keep in mind, like, I think he's like what, pushing late 30s, maybe early
Yeah,
40s,
he's
like something
older.
like that. And the saves that he was pulling out
He's
were
40,
just,
FYI.
yeah, were just insane. So a few of those chances that should have gone in, if they go in, we're having a completely different conversation. But that's the difference, right? Like, you have an elite goalkeeper in one goal, and suddenly all the cracks are exposed. So no, I will say hats off to him. Amazing performance, even in game 2 and in game 1 as well. Like, all 3 games, even though we lost, or United lost game 1, again, just top performance from him. So playoff Guzman, man, he's similar to playoff Butler, right? They're just bring out a different side in them.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about the MLS playoffs, but I want to kind of continue to what Inter Miami has coming up next, which is the Club World Cup, which is actually kicking off in Miami at the Hard Rock in June. Medhi, what do you think? Like, do you think, like, just what's your opinion on us being in that tournament in general?
First of all, what's your guys' opinion of the Club World Cup, just like as a general, in general?
I think it is pretty cool. I love watching it because it's like before anything else really starts in the soccer season, and it's awesome seeing these like random clubs go up. So I think what it is right now is not much, but I think it will get bigger, especially with like, for example. Well, I'll let you give your answer, but that's my response. Yeah.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think it's extra games. Unpopular opinion, but I think it's extra games on an already kind of like congested schedule. So I think it's
Yes.
huge for teams like outside of Europe, right? Like the South American teams, obviously, like Inter Miami, the Asian teams, the African teams. They get the chance to kind of platform themselves on maybe the biggest stage in front of a lot of eyes. Obviously, they're going to be here in America. America, the soccer culture is very much growing. But speaking specifically for like the European teams who are already playing all these games, international breaks, for them to now have another tournament after an already like congested schedule, I think again we're entering that stage where we're really finding out like how far can you push like the human body.
And
So,
mind.
and mind as well, the fatigue as well. So when is the tournament again? Is it
It's
June
from
or
June to July of
yeah?
2025.
So the European season finishes like end of May, around there, for the Champions League and all the leagues, and then you're asking them to jump right back into like another tournament. So I think overall the tournament will be a success. But I just hope that the players are able to get some kind of rest and some kind of like load management before they go right back into their domestic leagues and like stuff like that. But I think overall, for the United States to host that tournament, I know Inter Miami is controversially getting in, and losing this weekend doesn't make that better.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but
so funny.
right. But I think overall it is a positive. I do like that Inter Miami is in it. I think again, even if they lost, they are a team that will represent the MLS well. Obviously, they're heavily invested in,
Yes.
and I would rather them than an Atlanta or like a
Yeah.
Orlando. So
They're going to get
I
smoked.
like them in it.
It's also I'm glad you agree, because I think like everyone's like, oh my god, it should have been the winner of this, the winner of that, the winner of that. Why they choose it this first time? Oh, it's Messi, and it's like, yeah, no shit, because like literally the
Right.
MLS is not in the Club World Cup without Messi.
Right.
So FIFA's like, bro, we're taking our man. Like, we do not
Right.
care about any one of these other MLS teams except for the
Right.
one with Messi on it.
Right.
So
Right. Completely agree.
all right, Juan, without knowing who's in the playoffs, but knowing that we are in the quarterfinals, who is winning the MLS playoffs this year?
You gotta go to the West.
And
for
Inter
that.
Miami doesn't have a chance anymore, right? Like we're officially out.
We're gone, completely gone.
You know what?
And we lost to Atlanta United. That's other context.
How is Charlotte FC? Because I went to a game of theirs and I really enjoyed it, so I like secretly also root for them. Are they somehow relevant in this conversation, or are they also out of that equation?
They are out.
Then there goes my answer.
Actually, they were never in, unfortunately.
Wow, you're really putting me on the spot here, John. This is really embarrassing.
Just pick a city.
Pick a city. I've always heard that like Minnesota, I think has like a decent team.
Hey, nice, they're in.
Yeah, let's go. All right, dude. How's
Nice.
smart money's on them, dude? Minnesota is taking it all the way. Yeah,
Dude, I was like, whoever you pick is worth putting money on.
yeah,
But at least
that's
win.
it.
They
Biblical.
play the Galaxy, which is tough. But what do you think, Medhi? Who's winning the playoffs this year?
I think you got to go West Coast, man. I think it's going to be one of the LA teams. Personally, the Galaxy. I think I don't know, that second game in Vancouver was really weird for LAFC. They got beat 3-0, and I watched that game and they just looked super susceptible. So I'm personally going to go with the Galaxy. I think they're really flying right now. Yeah, so personally I'm going Galaxy.
Ricky, what is his name? Ricky Puig?
Puig.
He's
Mhm.
balling right now, right?
No, he's going crazy. He looks
Yeah.
12 and 37 at the same time.
Yeah, I'm happy for him though, because I mean, like he kind of was like
Yeah.
a little bit of almost a sad story, kind of getting. I don't know if he got kicked out of Barcelona, but
Pretty much.
he got sold at what, like 20,
Yeah,
21?
something like that. Yeah.
So that's pretty heartbreaking. But
I really like how he's embracing the MLS. Obviously coming from Barca, the whole stereotype about the difference in the leagues, but he really seems like he's settled in. LA is his home. He's very happy to be here. So I'm happy. He's very successful. He's doing very well.
so I think my last question before we kind of like transition over is, how has Atlanta been for you in the soccer scene? I mean, like obviously we met through playing soccer in Miami. So kind of like just walk us through and any of our soccer homies, like what's the difference been and like what are you up to playing there wise?
Yeah, so I'll say the number one difference is that the pickup is way better in Miami. I will completely, I'll stand by that. I think the quality of soccer, and that's why when you were talking about earlier, specifically being a soccer city, I will say Miami is more, because I could say and I didn't realize it in the moment, when I was in Miami, but the pickup games in Miami, you'll have decent players. Obviously, that's where we met, playing soccer and stuff like that. So there are really, really good players surrounded or spread out through Miami. In Atlanta, the decent soccer players are playing in leagues like Silverback, whether it's the ADSL, Sunday League, stuff like that. And I've got myself into some of those leagues now. But I'll say overall, just the quality and different kind of things like that, I'll say Miami probably has the edge there. But I am enjoying myself here in Atlanta. I'm playing Sunday League with a team called Terminus. I don't know if they were
Cool. Yeah. Terminus Legion.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's good vibes. I'm a Silverback every Tuesday. So the soccer is good. It keeps me from going crazy from school and stuff like that. But I do miss Pegaso. I do miss Brickle for sure.
Yeah. Well,
So which one of you guys was the better player? I'm sorry. I feel like the people want to know that. Who was the better one on the pitch?
My man John. You don't want to see him on a Thursday night over in over in Brickle.
Dude, I've seen his highlights. This guy's a beast. He's a monster. He actually came out one time for a surprise birthday party of mine. Recently, 7 stitches on his head after he just got injured. The guy's a beast. He's a monster. So
that was my first Sunday League game in Miami Beach Soccer League, and I went up for a 50-50 header in the midfield and just cracked heads with this dude. Then we went to Tyrona for your birthday.
Oh yeah, that was lit. So ever since then, I was like, this guy's a real one.
All right, Juan, do you want to take us into the other side of the world in football? Should we go through this
absolutely
wormhole?
We got to talk about that. I'm no longer suicidal, at least for the time being,
Wow,
because the
congrats.
Miami Dolphins, believe it or not, yes, clap it up.
Clap it up. Write in your gratitude journal today.
Yeah,
That's a good one, right?
the Miami Dolphins manage, and I say managed to win a football game yesterday. That's right, 3rd victory of the season against a very good LA Rams team in Los Angeles. I'm extremely shocked. I don't know how it happened. Tua, first and foremost, was actually wearing a what seemed to be like an astronaut cap, which is actually funny because he was Woody 1 year for Halloween. So I saw a lot of pictures floating out there on Twitter where it was him photoshopped into a Buzz Lightyear outfit right next to him in a Woody outfit. Okay, so I don't know what he's trying to do there. I'm a little concerned that the CTE is starting to manifest a little bit, but I'm sticking by this take. But I feel like the head injuries are somehow making him a better player, and I say that because he also took another head injury during that game. He decided after an interception once again to fully tackle the incoming player that had intercepted the ball, and again decided to drop with his shoulder. And then, upon falling, took a knee directly into his skull, which he then proceeded. Yeah, he's insane. I gotta respect it.
Okay,
I gotta respect it because the guy is literally turning in his brains into a grand slam. Shout out Danny's, I love it so much. It's honestly impressive at this point. I used to be worried about his health, but now it's like watching an X-Men on the field. The way that he plays,
Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, he's literally Buzz Lightyear. That's basically what he is. But a couple other notes. I mean, Tyreek Hill had a touchdown. We hadn't seen that in a while. And did you know? Fun fact that. Statistically, this season, he has not had a 100-yard in every game that Tyreek Hill has not been arrested prior to the match. He has not received for 100 yards. So for every game that he has technically been arrested for in the 2024 season, that's been a game that he's had 100 receiving yards. So now if in the future, if any of the remaining games he happens to get arrested before the game, you take the over on the receiving yards for that day.
Gotcha.
Did you see the injury report for his wrist? Did you see so he was saying how his wrist been hurt since being detained and arrested.
Yeah. So police brutality. I mean, we back the blue on this podcast, but if you heard my wide receiver one, I'm gonna be not as inclined to make those kind of claims. But yes, I did see that arresting him did re-aggravate the injury. So I don't appreciate that. I mean, this kind of opens up the narrative. Is the Miami Police Department to blame for the Dolphins' atrocious season? Like, it is a speculation.
You already heard the perspective, and it becomes more and more true by the week, I would say. This was an inside job by ex-mob or ex-cartel to take out Tua's season receiving yards lines, all the lines sacrificed. Those cops were paid, and they're in on a gambling ring. Yep.
That for sure, dude. Bovada, all of these sketchy gambling sites, just decided to send their best men out there, and it's just like, figure out a way to take Tyreek down and just put the season in a downhill spiral. And I'll never forget that Sunday because I did wake up hungover week one that Sunday, and the first thing I see on my phone is John sending me a video like, did you see this shit? Like, Tyreek's getting arrested. I'm like, wait, what? Am I still asleep?
Miami Dolphins.
I think the day that he got arrested, he scored a touchdown, right?
He did.
He went off.
Okay.
He popped out. 100 receiving
yards. My friends in my group chat were like, once we saw that news, we were like, smash Tyreek touchdown. He's scoring at least one because of what happened. So that was a good day from a betting perspective.
Yeah. So I think moving forward, maybe the takeaway here is anytime you see an athlete get in any sort of legal trouble immediately before a game that they're going to play, just bet on them. Whether it's
same thing happened with Scotty Scheffler, the golfer, right?
That is true. That is true. Yes, you're right. So what is the correlation between getting arrested and somehow performing better? Maybe it's like some kind of rage against the machine type of thing where it's just like, oh, fuck the police. I'm going to just ball out this game. And I think I ball out against police brutality. Like I really don't understand the connection, but clearly there is one. So gamble responsibly, but I guess if you want to do an inside job, like, figure out a way to get your favorite superstar arrested and then boom, easy money right there. Like not gambling or financial advice, do with that information what you will.
Speaking of Mehdi, how rigged do you think soccer is?
Rigged.
Take the Messi perspective out of it, because we all know the situation with that. But like besides that,
Well, did you guys see that news with the English Premier League ref? The dude that was like
with
cursing
Jurgen
Klopp
Klopp,
out? Yeah. So that was like years ago, and he's refed more
oh
Liverpool games
wow,
since then. So I'm not saying that the game is rigged, but I certainly think that sometimes there is biases that are apparent that come out like later and come out in the light. Um, so I think if I were to start leaning and putting on my silver cap and saying soccer is rigged, it would take my love out of the game. But I will say sometimes there are some things that you watch and you're just like, that's really sketch. Like, how can you come to that conclusion?
I think
But
all sports are rigged, if I'm being honest, and they're rigged against me specifically. That's
that's how I
so.
feel with my parlays. I'm like,
Yeah,
what is going on?
yeah.
But yeah, I feel that.
I collectively think that whenever I bet U.S. currency, whatever league I am betting into collectively comes together, looks at whatever it is that I'm betting, and it's just like, all right, boys, he did it. The check
we
went
got
through.
him.
The check
Vegas
went
makes the
through.
call.
We got the funds. Like, fuck it, dude. Like,
Vegas makes the call.
yeah. That's listen. It's like the Broncos Chiefs game. Like I'm sorry, that was just too fairy tale for me to not believe because
Wait, what
I
are you talking about?
heard.
What happened?
So you remember? So the Broncos were up ahead, or sorry, were down by a point, made it all the way down to the Chiefs like 30 or 40-yard line with like 2 seconds left in the game. All they had to do was make an easy field goal in order to hand the Chiefs the first loss of the season. And what happens? The kick is blocked. Chiefs win. They stay undefeated. I saw that and I was like, yeah, this shit is rigged because a lot of people had Denver winning that game. Money was on Denver winning that game. Like everyone thought that is where the Chiefs were going to get their first loss, but nope, it's rigged. That's 100%. I will die on that hill. I don't care what anyone says. Like all that, it's all rigged, specifically against me.
Dude, the Las Vegas algorithm goes crazy.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it performs so well is just like it's actually insane.
It is.
Yeah,
It is pretty insane. I don't know. It's some
with how good it is at going against you.
Yeah, it's very much going against me.
Me and you both.
Yeah, Medhi, you get it, bro. It's tough out there, dude. God made us handsome, so he said, I got to give you a handicap somewhere, and the handicap is going to be, just being the worst fucking gamblers that I've ever seen in my life.
Right. That's why I can't take that title of professional gambler.
Exactly.
Right.
But reeling us back in, yesterday was, I don't know how to interpret it. I feel like that's the equivalent that, I don't know. It's when like
fever dream.
I would call it closer to like when a really hot girl like texts you back and you gain a little bit of hope because she's kind of ghosted you a little bit and you're like, oh, do I have a chance? Like, is something going to happen? So it kind of teases you for a bit. Like you put so much hope into the text back that you got and you start investing into it and you're imagining all of these scenarios because like that gave you a little bit of hope. But ultimately, she was just bored. The other person that she was interested in was not messaging her back, and that's why she texted you. And yes, this is from personal experience, if you guys do want to ask, but that is what it feels like right now with that Dolphins victory. Is like I gave up all hope, and I said it, hand up. I said it multiple times on this podcast that I'd given up. The phrase I've been saying lately that is just being a banger at my job and with everyone that I've been saying it. We got, be like Tiananmen Square and embrace the tank. That's what I've been saying. And that's how I felt. And yesterday's game it's given me hope. And that's a bad thing. Like that is not what I need right now. We have an incredibly tough schedule ahead. I mean, there's just like sickos and idiots and dummies on Twitter that are like, oh, we have a chance. Like we could technically win this. Like, no, we're not, guys. We're not. Okay. Tua has Denny's breakfast special for brains right now. Like this guy is not going to take us into the promised land. I don't know. I'm refusing.
Tua's locked in. Tua's locked in. I'm all with him. As long as he keeps wearing the shiesty,
man.
we're going to the playoffs.
Well, I think he's locked in because like his frontal cortex has just been so probably pushed into his head, so that what we're interpreting as him being locked in is actually like a neurological defect that he currently has going on.
No, he's just on a higher level. He's just on a higher plane. He's just in a spectral plane right now.
That's
Buzz Lightyear.
It could be, man. Like to me, he's like, you know, if Spider-Man had been based on like getting a radioactive kick to the head, and like his superpower was CTE, like
Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah,
literally.
But Tua looked good. Like Javon Holland, like holy shit! I didn't even know he came back from injury. He got a big sack. Pause, no, did he?
Chop Robinson too, beast.
Chop Robinson also killed it. I sincerely forgot that we took that guy in the first round until yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like that was our first round pick. Holy shit, forgot about that guy. Odell almost killed Tyreek, celebrating the Russian. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
There's been a lot to pick apart from last game. I mean,
what's Miami's record?
Who's record?
3-6.
Miami's.
Oh, 3-6. Yeah. Terrible. People are already
one game out of the wild card. So it's crazy how much hope there actually is. But I mean, Juan, your point is everything. Where it's like, yeah, we're still Miami Dolphins.
I refuse to get hopeful. I'm going to stay cynical because I feel like the universe just wants to prove me wrong. So if I just preach the narrative that we're going to do bad and that we're going to stay bad, the universe is going to say, no, I can't let you have bragging rights and let you have a moment that you were entirely correct. So it's a little bit of reverse psychology that I'm doing with the powers that be. And that's kind of how I'm playing it. But yeah, realistically, last night was a tease. You know, I got a tasteful nude basically, but you know, I didn't really get to see much for all intents and purposes. So it was a tease. And I'm still very, very bearish on the Dolphins. I think Stephen Ross should sell the team. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Like, nice win, surprising win, you know, big win for like an always competitive team, especially on the road. But I'm not buying any stock on the Dolphins. That's all I got to say. Medhi, John, what do you guys think about that?
I want to hear Medhi's outsider perspective on the Dolphins season.
On the Dolphins?
Are you betting the Dolphins? Would you bet the Dolphins right now to make the playoffs?
How many teams are in the conference? How many teams make it to the playoffs?
Eight in each conference. The top 8 teams.
Top 8 teams, and we're where right now?
Not in the top 8. Actually, no. I think John.
So
we're one game from the wild card.
Yeah, so we're in the race.
8th or 9th? 9th?
Yeah, we'd be 9th or 10th at least. I don't know. The rankings probably say, but yeah, if what John is saying is true, then we're 9th or 10th at that point.
I think Miami does it because I think sports is better when Miami is good, and I hope Miami does it. So that's my outside perspective. I think sports is better whenever the Heat, whenever the Dolphins, whenever Miami is involved. I think just Miami is such a cultural powerhouse. So I hope that Miami does it.
I mean, I agree 1,000%. Like, I do think life is better when Miami sports are doing good. 1,000% agree with that.
Juan's been hurt so many times.
Yeah, but it's listen. I'm going to stop being stupid for a second and make an actual analytical take. Realistically, the AFC is running through essentially 4 teams, maybe 3 teams. The Chiefs, obviously, the Chargers, which are like pretty good, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Texans. Okay? That's already 5 teams that I think in a playoff environment, we simply are not going to beat. So realistically, even if we squeak into a wild card round, we're going to be facing one of those 5 teams. And there is 0 chance that Buzz Lightyear is going to take us, you know, to infinity and beyond. All right. That pun did not land very well. Nobody laughed, but that's okay.
What's the answer though? Like, do you see Miami compared to like the last, like for example, like if we were to look at the last 4 years, like what's Miami's trajectory?
Nothing. We have stayed stagnant. For all intents and purposes, Miami hasn't done anything. We're flashy on paper. We put up good numbers, but again, kind of like we were talking about with Inter Miami, if you're doing all of these things but is not translating into meaningful wins for all intents and purposes, like it's all novel, it's all surface level, glitter basically, and that's what Miami's been. I mean, yeah, we had an exciting season last season, and even the season before that, like it was exciting to watch, and I had a little bit more hope, but like there's something fundamentally wrong within the culture that needs to change. There's a disease hidden somewhere in there that I feel like no one has been able to diagnose, and I just think ultimately it's something with the culture, because
it's you betting on the Dolphins.
It's me betting on the Dolphins. That probably is it. That probably is it.
You think Tua being there is an indication of like what you're talking about, like, and nothing against him, but again, this is just from like an outside point of view. For a guy who has sustained that level of like damage, right? Shouldn't like a sports organization be realistically looking for like an alternative, someone to bring in? And
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're looking at the draft board, and I feel like you would have to be stupid, and that would just be new levels of stupidity from that organization that I could never perceive. I could never imagine that they would reach, but I have to imagine that in the background they're looking at potential draft spots and where they could land and potential replacements for Tua. Like you have to have a contingency plan.
They didn't have one this season though.
They didn't. They didn't. And look how it came back to bite us. And if this wasn't a learning experience for Stephen Ross, for Chris Greer, for Mike McDaniel, quite honestly, like I don't understand what else you're doing as the head of this organization besides covering yourselves and having some sort of contingency plan. So I have to imagine, yes.
No, I completely, I don't think Tua is the problem by no means, but I think, for example, loyalty to a guy, and you see this with organizations all the time, right? Yeah, the guy has kind of either hit his peak or is no longer able to perform at the same levels. So, but sticking with him just because like he's your guy and he's given you success before in the past,
listen. This is business at the end of the day. I mean, that's the equivalent. I think it's the equivalent of, let's say you work for a sales company. Maybe you had incredible sales, the past couple of financial quarters, but maybe the past few, you just haven't really been performing at that level. You will most likely get cut from that organization. They're not going to justify, because you had some good quarters in the past, justify keeping you. And that's what I think we're at. I feel like the guy, sure, he's had some impressive games, but it's not even a situation where we can point back to anything meaningful. We haven't won the division, obviously haven't won the conference, haven't made the Super Bowl, haven't won a playoff game, haven't done anything. Yeah. So, and then on top of that, his health is slowly declining. So it's just like, where is the positive outlook here?
You're not looking at the positive where his health is actually inclining, as I recently said about him being on a higher spectral plane. I also want to ask you a question, Juan. This is a serious question.
Dime.
I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a sales team manager. Are you visualizing this? Now imagine Buzz Lightyear works for you. Could you imagine firing him?
Well, I mean, is he like action figure size in this?
He's exactly your choice. He can either be human size or action figure size, but both are fully coherent. And he's the sales member that you were saying was not performing.
Well, is he prime Buzz Lightyear? He's prime Buzz Lightyear saving the world, or is he like Buzz Lightyear like one wing kind of falling off? And
listen, he's as prime as Tua is in the NFL right now.
Listen, Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story 1, elite. Okay, by far the best action figure in that entire movie. Like. Mm-hmm. Easily Hall of Fame candidate after watching that movie. Mm-hmm. By the time we got to Toy Story 3, he was washed. He was not the same. Like he took off his helmet, and I think that affected his health a little bit. No, and at that point, I would be very pleased. I would almost enjoy firing him for the rest of Andy's toys.
Wow.
Listen, and I don't know where you're going with that take, but all I got to say is I'm very bearish is all. I am just extremely bearish. That's all it boils down to. I don't see hope.
We're still taking Dolphins money line this weekend.
Probably. Like I say this shit every episode, and then I look at the betting app, and I was just like, I don't know, dude. Dolphins covering the spread, like they could do it. They could do it. It's very bad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, let's touch on some couple other topics here. I mean, University of Miami first loss against Georgia Tech. We're back on that. I mean, not much more to say on that. John, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Defense, complete and utter liability for the Hurricanes, and we obviously saw that. They're no longer officially within the top 12 teams in the nation in the college football playoffs. I think they're first four out. They're right in that mix. But, dude, John, when you're right, and you're right a lot, and you were right about this one. Defense let them down. It cannot all be Cam Ward. I don't know, boys. Any thoughts on that?
How is Atlanta, Medhi, with Georgia Tech winning?
Man, I don't know if you saw the scenes. They stormed the field. They tore the goalpost down. Like they were like parading it through Atlanta. So like I'm telling you, when these schools do well, and obviously I just got here, but they were lit. They were very excited. It was a much anticipated game, and I'm not a big football guy, but I will say the nickname or the reputation of being cardiac canes is a good thing. The ability to come back, but you can't keep coming back every single game because eventually there's going to be a game where you can't do it. That's what happened.
Yeah, 100%.
My only thing, Medhi, with just to kind of close on college football is like I recommend being a Georgia Tech fan and not a Georgia Bulldog.
That's what people are telling me. I'm being kind of pushed both ways. UGA, Georgia Tech.
Don't do it, man. Dude, literally, I'll just tell you the only thing you need to know, and I'm sure Juan could tell you a million other things. You're going to be surrounded by people that are grown men, women, children that are barking as dogs at other humans with no qualms.
I have seen that.
Do you want to be a part of that? It's up to you.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, you would,
That's kind of fucked up to say because, like, I hate Georgia as a state, as a university, as whatever it is that it stands for. But I've always loved that. I'm like, fuck, dude. That's so funny because like that's totally on brand for something that I would personally do if I go drinking. Just like start absolutely barking at opposing fans. Hands up
that way. Have your choice. Have your choice, Medhi. Balls in your court.
I think I have up until the end of this semester to kind of decide. I think that's one full semester.
Wow, it's that close.
Yeah. So
wow,
we'll see.
Well, with that all being said, I mean, Medhi, I think I don't know if you've got any shout outs or any closing remarks you want to do. We can kind of wrap up with you closing us out.
No, then once again, like I said in the beginning, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is very enjoyable, and you guys do great work, and I'm looking forward to continuing to support this podcast. You guys are really good people.
Appreciate it, Mehdi. Well, we hope to have you back on. This was great, insightful takes. No, this was awesome. Thanks again for coming on by, and for everyone listening, thanks for listening.
Peace.